So my writers, for the most part, I was super, super cheap when I started. And I actually, I hear people say like, oh, I usually will pay. I usually do it by word. And the reason why I do that when I pay my writers, I say, okay, by word. Actually, I'm sorry. I say by 100 words because it's just easier math. But I usually say that because I want my writers to understand that I want them to write what they need to write. I don't want to say, write an article between 500 to 750 words and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. I don't like doing that at a fixed cost because as a writer, they have no incentive to go past 500 and 501 words. They have no incentive. It's like, why would I spend more time doing this for my client when I have this other client who, they have no incentive. So I basically say, I will just pay you per 100 words. And usually that comes out to like, when I started at first, I had a writer that was like 50 cents per 100 words. Oh, and one other thing, I always get English-based people, no matter what, 100%. I never ever get anyone from outside of the US because I've just found that, well, I guess you could make the argument like UK and all that would be fine, definitely. But their currency is higher than ours, so that's why I don't usually go with them. But like you want someone who is an English speaker, full-fledged native, and that's just what they do. I've just found when I've tried to do it with other countries that I've always had too many little issues, like little intricate things. Plus, they don't always understand like the humor here and the current events. It's just they're not in the culture. They're not immersed in the culture, so they don't fully get it.
Right.
But I always hire them. But yeah, I like when I pay them, I usually will do it per 100 words. I started at like 50 cents, which was super super cheap, and the lady was working way too cheap. And then I was up to like a buck, and that was, believe it or not, like some people will tell you like, oh, you have to pay at least like $2, $3, $4 per 100 words. And I think that you probably do get some better content for that. Like for the most part, there is definitely that, but there's a point of diminishing return there. And the reality is, with a lot of content, specifically if you choose the right niche and it's not super competitive, you might be the only one writing it, or like one of the few writing it. So good enough or a little bit better than your competitor is better than anything else out there. Not easy to find those niches, but I think I kind of stumbled into one of those with my own affiliate site. So it's like when you're dealing with that, you don't need to pay super, super high. And especially if you're doing informational content like I do, you're not going to see a huge return on your content anyway. I mean, it's going to be like most of my content doesn't make a ton of money. The thing is, I just have a ton of content that makes a little bit of money, all those different pages. So like that's the difference between my business model. But if you're doing like an Amazon one, like that type of website, I could see paying more. Now I typically pay, and I usually go for people who have like a journalism type of degree. I look for teachers are really big. And now I'm okay, usually around $2 per 100 words, which is like 2 cents a word. That's typically what I'm willing to pay now, which I've found that the content is good enough. So I have that. And then I also, I'm trying to think of how many writers I have right now. I think it's 3 different writers right now, is what I have. And then I have a editor that actually manages all the content of all my websites, and she just gives it that final look through. And then if I ever have an issue, this is why I like that, because they don't report to that editor, but at the same time, she's kind of the catch-all. So if I see something wrong with my articles, I don't have to go to the writer. I have to go to the editor and say, hey, why did you miss this? And then they catch that flack, and then it spreads to all my writers and all my content, so they know, don't do that again. And then they're making sure that they keep the writers in check. And I tell them, if you have to talk to the writer, please talk to the writer. Tell them this. Like, that's okay. Like, I'm leaning on you. And if this content isn't good, I'm leaning on you. So this is on you, and this is going to be your problem if it's not good. So that whole hierarchy has worked for me. But when I first started, to go back to people who are probably earlier, I just hired a writer. They would submit content to me. I would review it. I would edit it. And I still teach at colleges and stuff. So like I'm good at that whole part of editing and all that because it's just like part of my profession. But I would edit it myself and then post it myself, but as I grew, I had someone post, and then I got an editor. Like that took time for me. That was probably one of the most difficult things for me to let go of, is like putting an editor in place. I barely even see some of the content now. I mean it, like it just goes up there, and then my virtual assistant's like, hey, it's up. And then I'm looking at it, and I'm looking, if I see anything wrong, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. And then I'll go back. But I wasn't like that before, So.
Well, how did you, I get this question often. So how did you like let go of that control?
I know that I'm not great at everything. I think I'm pretty decent slash good at a lot of things, but I'm not great at everything. And it just comes down to the fact that like I wasn't a journalism major, you know, like I'm not like I'm a good writer. I had to be. I mean, I almost did like a whole thesis and my doctorate program and all that. I'm a good writer, but I understand that there's people who are better at it than me. I understand that there's people who are way more passionate about it. And writing and creating content in general takes forever. It's a very long, like it just takes time. I didn't like spending my time doing that. It's not that I couldn't do it, but it was like, okay, I could spend all my time doing this, or I can buy back some of my time and have someone else do it. And then I can oversee the whole direction of the website and really where we're going. You know, that was like a really, really big thing to me. And like one of the things I always say to people who are like hesitant to outsource, at the end of days, when you were on your deathbed, right? Hypothetically, you're sitting there. Do you think that you're going to be like, man, I wish I would have edited more articles, like that kind of thing? Or like, I mean, that's dramatic, but the reality is every hour that you buy back of your own time by investing in outsourcing is another hour you get to actually live and enjoy and have for yourself, you know? And like, it may sound cheesy or whatever, but that's how I think. Like if it comes down to time, anything that takes me a lot of time, outsource as quick as I can, because I know that time is the one thing none of us can ever get back. You can never do it. So
yeah.